I think we'll get started a few minutes late. Want to welcome everyone that's here in person and virtually. And do we want to go around and have everyone introduce themselves, or do you want to do attendance first? Or
you can go around here and everybody introduce themselves, and I'll do the attendance for the people online.
Great. All right.
You start. Good morning, everyone. Scott Trebus with Republic Services. I'm a representative of a solid waste management organization composed of commercial operation.
Good morning. Scott Pasternak with Burns & McDonnell, representing the general public.
I'm Frank Pugsley with Park Hill. I represent a professional engineer in private practice with experience in solid waste management.
Lisa Weinberger with Lisa Weinberger and Associates, and I represent composters and environmental educators.
Dave Yonke with New Gen Strategies and Solutions, represent the financial community.
Chuck Rivette with Waste Management Texas, and I represent a solid waste professional with experience managing and operating the commercial solid waste landfill.
Robin Alanis, I'm from Goliad City Council, and I'm also on the Golden Crescent Regional Planning Commission. I represent cities under 25,000.
This is your first meeting, right?
Yes.
All right. Well,
I'm chairperson. I could have moved it as a.
Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
I'm Jeff Mayfield with North Texas Municipal Water District, and I represent public solid waste districts or authorities.
Charlie Fritz, Deputy Director of the Waste Permits Division, representing TCEQ.
Megan Henson, Section Manager for Municipal Solid Waste Permits.
Anna Yas, Technical Specialist, Municipal Solid Waste Permits.
And I'm Savannah Rains, Municipal Solid Waste Permits, here for tech support.
Okay, next I will call roll for anybody who's online. First, Richard Bromowitz.
I'm here.
And who do you represent?
The general public, I think, if I remember.
Cheryl Murgo.
Here, I represent a regional planning entity. I'm with the Houston-Galveston Area Council, and I apologize, my camera's not working.
Okay. Steve Shannon.
Good morning, Steve Shannon, representing a public recycling agency and calling in from the wilderness in northern Wisconsin.
Dedication. Judge Dillard. Jennifer Lutz.
Jennifer Lutz with Silver Creek Materials, and I represent the land reclamation project using tires.
Judge Hayden. Rock Gutierrez. And Brock Lively.
Good morning. From Brock Lively. I represent a municipality, our county solid waste agency. I'm from the big city of Plainview, Texas.
Thank you. And did you want to go around?
We're not going to do that. I told you, sorry.
All right. So moving on, glad everybody's here. Let's go ahead and I guess Charlie will get an update.
So I don't have a lot, kind of just reiterating things we've talked about before, giving y'all updates. So we had the PFAS presentation late June. I know a couple of you have attended. For those of you that didn't attend or couldn't attend, we just basically covered kind of the current rulemakings going on, and most everything is in water right now. That's where the active PFAS is going on right now, is water. There are two RCRA, CERCLA rulemakings going on that impact hazardous waste sites that go into corrective action. So it's much more in the corrective action work that these constituents PFAS are being added as constituents. So corrective action right now. So all that to say that right now, again, focus is on water. But I mean, we kind of discussed that there are things coming along. So that's where we kind of didn't talk about the future because that gets into policy and future policy. So I don't know what those answers are. The agency doesn't even know what those answers are right now. So we'll keep you all abreast of things going on, things we hear. But we're kind of in the same boat as y'all, at least on the MSW side of we're waiting right now, waiting on the same information, waiting for the same things y'all are. So that PFAS, a couple of sunset updates. We started the new application posting online. So new applications coming in, TCEQ will take over posting the application. The rules are still in there in the MSW rules about the applicant posting their application online. Y'all can do what you want, but as of June 1st, any new admin complete applications, TCEQ will ask for a copy of the application. We will post it on our webpage, and I could have showed y'all a link, but we can send out a link later so you can see the new page. And the notices, the public notices will reference the TCEQ's webpage. So we're working on the rulemaking to remove the rule that says the applicant has to post their application on their page. That should be gone by the end of the calendar year. I think in October, November, whenever we'll finish up that adoption rulemaking. So that rule will be gone soon. And then the time being, y'all can make a decision, but our process is we're going to post the applications. And then temporary authorizations for MSW recyclers and scrap tires, generators, and what's the other one? Locurts, land reclamation site. So
NOI.
Yeah, NOI recyclers and scrap tires, generators, and Locurts. We're working on the temporary, it's not the right word, the annual authorization saying they're still active. So MSW landfills, all MSW processors don't have to do this part. It's only targeted on recyclers, NOI recyclers, and certain scrap tires. We're sending out a postcard to those facilities soon, those entities soon, and we'll provide training on how to handle steers and doing that once a year. Hey, I'm still telling TCEQ, hey, I'm still operational. So that's what that requirement's going to be.
It's all NOIs too. It's distance collection stations, low volume transfer stations.
So also including the NOIs for recycling, composting.
Yes.
NOI.
Notice of intent.
I'm sorry.
Notice of intent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So permits, registrations are not applicable to this. They already have annual reporting requirements. So that kicked them out of the sunset requirements. The NOI recyclers, the collection stations don't have that yearly submit something to TCEQ. So they fell into this pool of need to make sure we know, TCEQ needs to make sure who's still active and operational. So that's how we're going to do it, is this yearly, just submit us something. I think it's going to be less than the hardest part will probably be remembering your authorization number and your RN number. So finding those and then filling out, yes, I'm still operational. So we're hoping it should be quick. We know that steers may be new for a lot of people. And so we're going to provide training on how to access steers and get through all that. So we'll do that part, but the form, once you get used to it, should be pretty simple.
Are all these websites, are they listed on the TC?
Through various ways. They are, so we did go through all of our active NOI authorizations. So they should all be getting postcards saying that. Doing any other outreach?
Our webpage has been updated.
Okay.
And then announcements through the MSW newsletter.
It's on the MSW webpage.
I think it's on the MSW recycling webpage as one of the locations. We may have also put it on the main page, but I haven't.
We put a link. So there's links to we've created a whole new page, and then there's links on the MSW page and the MSW recycling page say, hey, go look at this if you need information.
So historically, this group of facilities hasn't really reported anything, and it's been hard for you to tell if they're actually still there. And probably, like you said, most of them don't use steers or haven't access to. What happens to all the ones that don't respond first year?
Yeah, we'll be going through a process. That's something we've discussed in great detail on what exactly to do. Have we come up with anything? No. Yeah. So right now we're going through that. Yeah.
Challenge.
It's not we understand the importance of the authorization means everything. So it's not an automatic, your authorization is denied, revoked, or whatever. It's going to be kind of probably a process of putting identification that this facility didn't report, and then get to a point where after enough correspondence, we've done our due diligence of you need to do something. We may go down the road of saying it's not active anymore.
Do the word every once in a while just to see whether there's anything happening anywhere around that location.
Yeah, that's a common summer intern project.
I think an example to show why this is important is the scrap tire generators we have on file. It's like over 11,000 that are active. And so about 3-4 years ago, we actually did try to reach out before this sunset project to see who's active. And we had about 1,800 respond saying yes or no. And some people were at least polite enough to call and say, this hasn't been here for 20 years. So we could cancel that one with some authority. But so that's the scrap tire world. And I think that's a good example of like the extent of the problem. The MSW NOI level is not 11,000. It's more around 700. So, but it still would be nice to know, not just nice, it's important to know who's operating. Both for our regional staff to conduct investigations, but also for the public to know that they can go to TCQ's website and see who's actually active, and they can take waste or recyclables too.
Just for Robin's help, I think, there's the big spreadsheet of all the MSW facilities that has all those NOI level people. In terms of spreadsheet you can download.
Okay.
It has every single registered, permitted, or notification level facility in the state in a giant list.
Yeah, it's the MSW facility database.
That if you want to.
Okay. Yeah.
I can add a link to it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I was just looking through the whole list of landfills. I said, okay, I didn't know this was here.
These are the only ones.
Yeah.
Closure.
Yeah. When I got in the landfill business, 700 landfills in Texas.
And then real quick, I'll add that this annual authorization was agency-wide. It was not focused because of MSW scrap tires. It was an agency-wide directive through sunset. And then last was kind of just so when this topic came up with us, we were end of June and everything was sunny and clear, and we started doing hurricane planning, and then we got to put all those plans into action. So a couple weeks late, but as you're going through this hurricane, we've been through our hurricane planning. One thing the region's asked is to make sure, if you want to, kind of have a contact with the regional office of, hey, if you need anything, here's the person to contact. It can be somebody in Austin, but they're kind of, what happens during hurricanes on TCQ's part is the public water systems, Office of Water calls the public water systems and the wastewater treatment plants. Those are really important because it's public water, it's wastewater. They want to know if those are operational or not, and if they need any help. It's been tossed around if we need to do that for landfills, and generally we haven't because y'all have been responsive. You come to us for TAs. And it's not an immediate public health safety. We can let the trash pile up in the front yard and then deal with it when things are less of an emergency situation. So, but OCE asked, especially for the larger events.
I want to a couple of acronyms.
Oh, okay.
I've been writing that.
Which acronym do I like?
Look up later.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, temporary authorization. So, those temporary authorizations, the emergency temporary authorizations for, I guess I haven't flipped into my legislative mode of explaining everything. The emergency temporary authorizations, y'all are good about submitting those to us, asking for, it allows flexibility, typically it's extra hours, storage, in buffer areas, as long as there's no disposal, storage in buffer areas. So just allow some flexibility due to emergency events. So kind of what the regional offices asked was, and something we asked too, of if there's a big event, think Harvey, where it's widespread and long-term impacts, having the contacts for the landfills is actually a good thing, because we can start doing that planning once the first couple of days have calmed down. We can start doing that planning of where is this waste going to go. So and so the regional offices ask for that. If you haven't kind of reached out to your regional offices, let them know. I have Megan and I have most of y'all's contacts. So when we were discussing this, we were like, we know who we could probably hit 95% of the landfills based on our contacts, especially through this. So, but it's just one of those kind of a request from the regional offices through planning, through the preparation process, do kind of reach out, just let them know if you need something, here's the person to contact. So that was just a request.
Have access to the local disaster planning documents that identify temporary disaster prevention sites.
MSW permits, waste permits does not. I don't know about the regional offices. Okay, yes. It's just usually Michelle's working. She's down at State Operations Center and doing about 1 million things. And so that was just the regional offices may or may not. I do not know what all they have. But yeah, that's a tool too. So if we can see if we can get better access to that. Any questions? Okay, that's all I have.
No, appreciate it. All right, she asked, but any other comments, follow up on that?
Yeah, any other agency-wide, waste permits-wide questions? Always happy to answer those.
The next item we had, Megan's going to give an update. And before that, are you going to update on attendees, or do we have to?
Yeah, let's real quick see if anybody else joined. Judge Dillard. Judge Hayden. Gutierrez. Thank you.
All right. Well, with that, Megan, you want to give your report?
Of course. So I think this time a year ago, we had 8 vacancies in MSW, and I'm happy to report that we only have 1 vacancy now. So we are definitely in the throes of training, but I won't even say there's light at the end of the tunnel. We're at the light, and it's pretty nice. So hopefully y'all will see good communication, faster communication, and good project turnaround on reviews. Speaking of reviews, we have major applications under review right now. We have 26 permits and 6 registrations. So this flows about every other quarter. They're typically around those numbers. I wanted to follow up on the posting of applications that Charlie mentioned. We do have what are called go-to links. So if you're just eager to check out the pending page, you can actually go to tcq.texas.gov/go-to/waste-apps. So we're putting go-to links, so they're shorter instead of 100 characters long that you're trying to type in an underscore and then %. It's a lot shorter. So you'll see that in our notices, that go-to link.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure, it's tcq.texas.gov/go-to/waste-apps. And that's going to be MSW and IHW applications. So you'll have to search around for radioactive material.
Waste apps, one word?
Yeah. Right, radioactive has their own, UIC. Okay, they have their own page.
It's actually a really cool page because you can search. There's a search field, and you can put permit number, and it'll just break it down. It's a table that is.
You have a link for back. Is that link still there, or is this link?
So we're transitioning. So we have the MSW apps page. That one's going to be phased out,
okay,
and everything will be moving to the waste apps. We're still working on the phase out process because we have some applications that have been open for 3 or more years. So we don't want to just suddenly move those where people may depend on the MSW pending page. So, and we'll make a, there's a link that says, hey, new applications are posted here. So we're sending people to the right location.
Have you, I'll do it, but if you've done like a Google check and just type in TCEQ waste application, does it show up the go-to page?
It does now, because that was the only way to figure out how to get there. I was like, gosh, I can't get there.
That's my search.
I was too slow to write it down. Like, I think to myself, if I can't find it on Google, I can't find it.
Yeah, it's in there. You don't have to click around all over the TCQ page. Yeah. So as the table is responsive, that's the word. So you can search and it'll bring down. So if you're looking for permit 1, 2, 3, 4, you type in 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the only thing that's going to show up. But if you type in 1, 2, it's going to bring up every permit that has 1 and 2 in it. So it's really a handy feature, especially now that we're combining with IHW. We have 30 plus applications open right now for MSW. That's not including the notice modifications. That's just major applications. So I love going in there and just seeing like, what notice is posted? Oh, yay, we're there. It's a great tool for staff and the public, I'll say. All right, moving on to trade fair highlights. So thank you everyone who attended trade fair. We had great turnout to the MSW presentations. Risa was one of our presenters, so it was great to hear more about composting. And we got really good reviews and feedback on the session. So we appreciate everyone who takes the time to provide that feedback after these sessions are over.
Right.
Yeah. So with that, we won't start planning until about December for next year's trade fair. That will be in May. But right now, TCQ is accepting applications for the Texas Environmental Excellence Awards. So if you want to learn more about those projects, you can go to teea.org. And like I said, now through August 30th, 2024 is when the application deadline is. And this is the annual program that honors achievements in environmental preservation. So it can be different groups, it can be individuals. So if you know someone, a group, an individual, city, make sure to nominate them for this award. Was it August 30th?
The next trade fair is us.
Yes.
Is that next week?
Yes. Yeah, next trade fair is in San Antonio. I actually think the award banquet's back here at a different time.
Yes, that's going to be June 10th. Okay. The award banquet will be June 10th, 2025, and it's actually going to be at the Bob Bullock Museum. So pretty cool setup.
Trade fair's in June next year because of session and probably booking. We'll double check. I'll double check that and then let y'all know before.
Be sure to submit those nominations by August 30th. And you can also, if you have additional questions, you can reach out to awards@tcq.texas.gov and they'll answer your questions there. And moving on to emergency temporary authorizations. Charlie touched on this a little bit. I was just going to go through, we are obviously in it now with Hurricane Beryl or Beryl, but it's Beryl. Some of y'all are still recovering from that, both in your personal lives and with your facilities. So just to explain a little bit, ETAs or emergency temporary authorizations, they are a mechanism for facilities to suspend certain permit requirements or rule requirements. And this really does depend on facility conditions and the nature of the storm. So we do have sometimes access control, it's a high windstorm, fences are blown down. It could be stuff related to leachate management because it rained 18 inches in a 24-hour period. So it really varies quite a bit on the requests. And this is to allow the facilities to get back up to normal operating conditions as quickly as possible, but understanding that there may be things like power outages that get in the way. So we typically issue, MSW permits will typically issue an ETA within 24 hours of receipt. And we do that because we know it's important for the facilities to have that peace of mind that they are not going to have regions show up and say, hey, you're not in compliance. if you do need, if your facility needs an ETA, we ask that you send it to MSWPER. I'm just throwing around so many websites and emails. Sorry, y'all. This is our proxy box, MSW proxy box. And that's because if someone's on vacation and you send it to an individual's email and they don't get it, we don't want you to be left stranded. So if you send it to our proxy box, that's monitored by multiple staff.
Is that again?
MSWPER.
Please all be listed on the minutes.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do
Okay.
But yeah, so that's our MSW proxy box. And so it's monitored by staff multiple times a day by multiple staff. And I think about 6 to 8 people have access to it. So, and we don't all go on vacation at the same time as a rule. So
During emergency events, we monitor that box on the weekend. So you can submit emergency TAs on the weekend as well, and we'll respond. We kind of respond by email and then finish up the paperwork on Monday.
I will say you guys have been great. Got it over quick. So thank you.
thank you. One thing to keep in mind, if you'll include what rule requirements or permit requirements need to be suspended as part of the emergency, and then a time frame. Typically we see 30, 60, 90 days. These can be extended because sometimes you don't know right off the bat. So if you go a little more conservative with 30 days, the 30-day timeline approaches, you can extend it out. And if we have questions, we reach out. I know sometimes when you're actually you live in the area that gets impacted, you may not have cell service or power. So we appreciate that. For the ones that came in this past week, there were a lot of contacts. So we were calling and emailing people left and right just to try to get clarification on some things. So we definitely want to help the facilities out. And, it also serves the community when the facilities can access, and assess what they need to do and continue to accept waste. Because I know the facilities get some pressure too. Like you have the people out there the next day loading up their trucks and coming in. So we want to work with y'all to help out. Any questions on ETAs?
It's a little unrelated, but I'm just curious on this storm. We've had this topic before. Is this more, or is it too early to tell, more wind related versus rain related? Because I've learned from you landfill guys, if wind, it's more brush. If it's rain, it's drywall and all that stuff. Is it too early to tell right now? Or?
Well, it depends on the area. South Houston got hammered. North Houston, at least in my area, was maybe 7, 8 inches of rain, but a lot more windy. So I think it's a combination of both.
I think it's going to skew. Scott's right, it's sporadic, but the one that, and it may have happened, I just didn't hear it. But I didn't hear any widespread flooding from the bayou. Plastic Great Bayou.
Right, yeah.
That did not affect them. So those are the ones that wiped out 1,000 homes at a time, right?
So it's probably not a lot of drywall type stuff.
There'll be roof damage if people have water damage from the roof.
Yeah.
And so that'll be the drywall that shingle. A lot of down trees.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. The last update, I think this may be partially update, partially conversation, is the landfills and post-closure care. So you'll see in your packet, or if you are online, in the invite. Okay. You'll see a list of landfills and post-closure care. And that's this one. So again, this is the approximate number of years before a landfill can exit post-closure care. And we have about 6 landfills that will meet the 30-year minimum period in the next 5 years. So that is somewhere on here, about the middle. And just as a reminder, landfills are not required to exit post-closure care if they're not ready to do so. We've had conversations about this for about the past year, how to exit post-closure care, and if it's required, TCQ will force the landfill, and we won't. We understand there's conditions that may be at play that a landfill to continue post-closure care. Y'all provided comments last year on the guidance, and we're taking those into considerations. We haven't published the draft guidance, so if we do have any updates, we'll provide those to you.
And Robin, just for your information, this whole issue, and I'll let you guys correct me on anything I get wrong, which I will, but there were new regulations, Subtitle D regulations that kicked in 1993 that put more stringent standards on how you build and operate in landfills, and one of them was closing. And, you know, if you were closing your landfill after whatever, November 9th, 93, October 9th, you had 30 years you had to monitor the landfill. And so it's been an issue that comes up because now we're at 30 years, and so are some of these landfills out of, you know, monitoring, or does it continue? And that depends on what gas and water wells and monitoring and all that. So it's something that there's an interest in.
So like, once they pass that time, and then that land could be used for whatever.
Well,
Sort of. With the permits.
maybe a hiking trail. I mean, bottom line, it's municipal waste, it's garbage there. And so, and then if it's, depending on the size, it's got gas wells for methane gas, but it's not stable. You're not going to build a house on it necessarily. So hiking trails.
After 30 years, if it's stable, you don't have to do the groundwater monitoring and you know, that kind of stuff anymore. If it's not stable, then you're not out of the wood. Yeah, so that's still basically, it has to be evaluated.
Yeah. Okay, great way to put it, evaluated.
Now, I have a question on this, though. The question on the closure, because someone was asking me this, you'll close cells, you know, different cells. Does the post-closure start at the lightest? I mean, do certain cells, can they start the closure clock at 30 years, or it's for the entire site?
Entire site. But when that last cell closes, has final covered.
Yes.
Even if you install final cover, still have to wait until the plant that closes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For closure cost management. By the whole thing off at the end. It's right. I should have done
it. There's more information on all this just in general on the website.
I believe so. I think we have some closure information.
Just a background.
Sure. Yeah, there's definitely closure information, references to the rules, and then sub T is the construction over a closed landfill. We definitely have guidance and application forms on that.
That was all I had.
And Robin, I'll actually send you a paper. I wrote a paper on it 30 years ago with Jane Carrion, who, if anybody knows that name, was over that area. So
are you partially responsible?
I'm not responsible. I just wrote a paper on it. So,
okay, thank you.
No, thank you for that, Megan.
There was a question, I don't know if before Charlie or Megan, it's from Cheryl. What's the agency's LAR process with Fund 5000 and 549 being combined? The COGS and TARC, that's Council of Government and Texas Area Regional Council, would hope for an increase.
So with the funds combined now, Fund 5000 and 549. 549 is the agency's operating budget. Fund 549 5000 was the amount going to the COGS for the Regional Solid Waste Grant Program. With those combined, we are in the budget process and currently right now, and generally we carry the same budget forward. So it would be, with those two combined now, it would just become the same amounts would be coming out of fund account 549. So it would just what you would see in the paperwork, in the bookkeeping paperwork, is what our what our appropriation from 2 years ago, just increase that by 5 million, because now we're combining plus however we increase the budget, but it would be our appropriation plus 5 million. So that's what you would be seeing. So it'd be, there's the same amounts, but just combined together. So it looks like more, but that's because originally it was split between the two accounts. Now they're combined together.
For the purposes of the dogs, they can expect to have plus or minus about the same money.
Yeah.
And expand it, they had less.
Yes. So, and the same amount. That's where we are at right now. The 5.49 million. I said 5 million as a round number. It's 5.49 and change.
Anybody have questions for Megan on anything?
Looks like Cheryl has another question. She raised her hand.
She can unmute.
I did. I was just going to say, I realized the 5 million, we're grateful for that. However, I know for just HJC, when we did our last call, we weren't able, we had like over $1 million of grant projects that we couldn't fund, and that's kind of across the state. So our local governments still are in need of funds, and Fund 5000 or the Solid Waste Grant Program is a very lucrative program for them because it doesn't require match. It's minimum paperwork. The TCQ has been really helpful with that to not place an undue burden on our local governments. So I appreciate the 5 million. Of course, we'd like more, but I wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
That fund contribution staying the same. Obviously, inflation has been quite high the last few years. Is there ever going to be any kind of thoughts about inflationary increases moving forward for those contributions?
It's definitely, it's something the agency would have to consider. I can't make that decision. So it's an agency question and a legislative appropriation question.
How the incoming funds from the disposal be relatively flat?
Yes.
Inflation or not, because you're not going to change appreciably.
Any other questions, comments? Next item, there had been some discussion and interest in getting some additional information on the scrap tire. And so that's our next item on the agenda. Megan, I don't know if you had any background there you wanted to give on that.
No, I'm full MSW now, so I'll leave it to Santos and Melissa.
Okay.
Yeah. So just one real quick update on the Swiffer before we get to the scrap tires, and Melissa's going to have a short presentation on that. So all the contracts are out with the COGS, all 5 of them. We finally reached met our last, milestone with EPA, in that we got the QAP, the Quality Assurance Project Plan, approved. And this is a plan that you have to kind of present to the EPA, have them approve it if there's going to be any kind of data that's going to be developed or gathered from the grants. And so we finally passed that. We got it approved. So we're still looking at August 1st date for having the contracts approved. They're all again with the COGS. We had a really good conference call with all 5 of them on Tuesday. Answer a lot of contract type questions. I got into some of the program project stuff, but not really in much detail with that. So it's going good. And the folks are really eager to start working on their projects. Had one meeting with EPA, not exclusively, but all the states that are doing SWIFR grants. And again, everybody's still in the flux as to what to do. We're pretty far ahead. Again, unlike most of the other states, we've reached out and passed it over to the COGS, which are then going to local entities to try to get this implemented. So that's kind of where we are. Hopefully next quarter, we'll be able to say that they're all going, that the local areas and the 5 COGs are moving along with their project.
Are the 5 projects all similar, or are they each one?
They're 5. They're 2 are similar in that they're diversion of food waste at ones at schools. Both are at schools and school districts. So those are 2 of them. The rest of them, there's a toolkit for recycling centers that someone's trying to develop. There's also some that's going, one that's going after commercial solid waste developed, not the residential waste, but kind of at businesses. So they're trying to develop a toolkit for that. I think that's it. I think the other 3 are mainly diversion, food waste diversion.
Quick question, Swimmer.
Solid waste infrastructure, you got me.
That was the grant program that was delegated to EPA as part of the infrastructure legislation 2 years ago.
Okay, thank you.
They provided grant funding to each of the 50 states.
We got $471,000 for it that we divvied out among 5 different COGs, roughly about 100,000 each. And so they've all done local projects.
Oh, it's the solid waste infrastructure for recycling grant.
There you go. Kind of like the acronyms. Once you start talking, yeah, you forget about what they mean. You know what they are, but yeah. Okay. So with that, we got our and again, this is a little different. The calendar year 2023 annual report for scrap tires. So we get results in March, by March 1, and then we do the QA and all the data. And so Melissa's going to have information on that.
Oh, thanks, everybody. Sorry. Clicker.
I've got to time it.
That's not.
All right. Got some information on the 2023 annual activity report, like Sancho said. So a little bit of information about what we do. We regulate the management of about 50 million discarded scrap tires in Texas every year. We have the Texas Health and Safety Code sections there, and the Texas Administrative Code Chapter 328, Subchapter F, which is specifically the management of use and scrap tires. That's the authority that we have to do so. We have 6 different registration types. The generators are your tire shops, retailers, wholesalers, and manufacturers. So discount tire or any other small tire shop is generally what you're thinking of there. Transporters, self-explanatory. These are folks taking tires from usually a generator to an end use or disposal facility. Scrap tire facilities, this is a broad category, or broader than the others. It includes processors, recyclers, and energy recovery facilities. We have the scrap tire storage sites where tires are temporarily stored and collected before they're sent on to their end use or disposal location. We have land reclamation projects using tires. These are projects that are aiming to fill in previously excavated land with a combination of 50% tire pieces and 50% inert fill to bring the land back to its approximate natural grade. We also have transportation facilities. This is a very rarely used registration type. I think there's one active one currently, but it would be at a marine terminal, a rail yard, some larger transportation facility where tires are kept for longer than 30 days before being sent to their end user disposal facility. So for annual reporting, who reports? Before this coming year, or before this year, it was transporters, storage sites, and scrap tire facilities. Transporters were reporting to us the location and number of tires that they collect, and then where they take those tires to. Scrap tire facilities are reporting how many and what type of tires they received, if they processed any of those tires, and then where they ended up eventually. Storage sites, similar, the number and type of tires that they received, and then where they were eventually sent. Coming soon, Charlie touched on this, generators and lure puts are going to be reporting their status, their operational status of active or inactive for the year. And we do have more information coming. We're going to have a training on accessing steers and all of that, like what you're facing. This table shows the number of active registrations by type. So we have our generators. Like Megan said, we've got over 11,000 active generator registrations right now. Transporters, about 500. Scrap tire facilities, 150. That's for processors. Recyclers, we have 8. We have 8 energy recovery facilities. The energy recovery facilities are places like cement kilns, steel mills, paper mills, places where tires are being used as an alternative fuel source. And then we have 13 active storage sites, 17 active lure puts. The highlighted rows are what were required to report to us. The data that we're required to report data to us. Generators and lure puts will be required to report their status soon. So we have the number of reports submitted for the past 5 years. See, we're holding steady at about 260 reports received since 2020. Looking at this chart, if everyone reported that was supposed to, we'd have, like, I think it's, 680? So we're working on improving compliance rate for annual reporting. So of the reports we received, this is the breakdown of the end user disposition of scrap tires. This year, Chrome Rubber took the largest amount here and the largest percentage at 18.8 million scrap tires. Tire Dry Fuel following closely behind with 17.6 million tires. And landfill saw 10 million tires. Recycling and processing, that's about 7 million. Lure puts, it was reported that almost 3 million tires were sent to lure puts this year. And then beneficial use, we've got about 100,000. That's a unique category. It's the use of tires. It's not regulated by TCEQ rules or Texas state laws. So like garden planter installations, maybe like a wall or something, dividing a property built out of tires, those types of things.
Excuse me, can you define
Yes, the lure put, that is land reclamation projects using tires. Those are the folks that are filling in previously excavated land back to its approximate natural grade.
What is, give me an example. Chrome rubber sounds like processing and recycling to me. Why would we have a chrome rubber separate from processing and recycling?
Chrome rubber is a type of processing, but it's specific because it has value and it has uses. The biggest use of chrome rubber, I believe, is use in turf fields. So it's mostly sold to recyclers for use in either molded or extruded products or some other type of use, primarily recycled.
Let me rephrase the question. Give me an example of who's processing and recycling that's not chrome rubber.
Yeah, so it would be a scrap tire facility that's maybe making a rough shred and sending those tires to the landfill, or to some other type of use that's not specifically chrome. They could also be processing into a rough shred and then transporting it to a chrome rubber producer. So it's possible that those tires are also recycled. Yes, playground material as well, playground bases.
So is it possible that there's double counting?
We try really hard to verify the numbers here and be sure that we're not double counting. It's possible that some of the tires in the processing category may end up being chrome rubber or landfilled next year, but at this stage, when it was reported to us, they had just been processed. But yeah, we do verify almost every report. If there's any question about if we're being double counted, we will reach out to the facilities and confirm that what they've reported is accurate.
Listen, I'm sorry. Could you help me with the time frame? Is this a fiscal year or a calendar?
It's for the calendar year. It's calendar year. This is just a pie chart showing the percentages of scrap tires. So it's the same information from the last slide, just in a pie chart here. And here we're moving on to trends for the past 5 years. You can see that this year, crumb rubber jumped up to the largest percentage, and tire-derived fuel following closely behind. Landfilling, we're happy to see that it's staying fairly consistent for the past couple of years. We are still below the 20%, which is the national average. The decrease in beneficial use is really due to more accurate reporting and that quality assurance that we're doing, calling folks and verifying that what they've reported is actually the end use. And here again is that same information in numbers. You can see tire-derived fuel has remained pretty consistent over the past 5 years. Crumb rubber had a pretty sharp increase from 2019. And landfilling also has stayed fairly consistent.
So can I ask a question there? How did crumb rubber jump so much? Because I know you think playgrounds and turf, and then folks had concerns about whether that's bad for you, but that's a lot of crumb rubber.
I'm not sure what caused the increase between 2019 and 2020. I know that it is a preferable use of scrap tires. So when there's an option to make from rubber out of a tire or to be used as tire-derived fuel, the industry is going to take that opportunity. So it's a free market system.
Could have been their reporting it as processing.
Does the crumb rubber go into own projects?
Yes, that crumb rubber is also used as tire aggregate, rubber modified asphalt.
Could it potentially be a plant or two went on? Could it potentially be a plant or two went online so before it was managed differently? Better reported. Probably that.
Yeah.
We have focused on increasing or improving the reporting. So that is possible. I'm not sure if we've had a major crumb rubber facility come on since 2019. I didn't think so.
I think at one point, one of the big ones increased their capacity.
Yes.
But I don't know that it would account for that much of an increase. And on the national level, there is a lot of promotion for crumb rubber.
Yeah, it's definitely more, crumb rubber is used more than just football fields. It's, like we said, road base, and there's more industrial uses than even we're aware of. So it's not just football field. There's a lot of other uses.
So approximately how many? 6.
On this slide, we've got 150 processors. I'm not sure exactly how many produce crumb rubber. The major ones are, the biggest one I think in the world is Jenin, and they're in Texas producing crumb rubber.
We know of some other ones. There's one in Northwest Texas, West Texas. So there's other ones across the state.
About unauthorized scrap tire fixing.
Yeah. So the last page on the annual reporting, we'll provide a link to the annual report in the minutes, the notes when they go out. So every year we work with our regional offices to get an update on all the different unauthorized sites that are out in Texas, and we've been averaging right at about 110, 111 or so sites. We take some off and some come in and some get back on. Most of the bigger sites are legacy sites. A lot of the sites that are on here are also sites that are either in some kind of enforcement action, maybe have been moved over to the Attorney General's office, but they all have some kind of regulatory oversight on them. And again, it's all handled through our regional offices. This year, we're at 112 sites. We've got about 13.8 million sites or tires at these sites. We have 12 unauthorized sites cleaned up over the last year. And we've added about 19 new sites. Now, we also started capturing a lot of the smaller sites that have 500, 600 tires on there. Not that those sites aren't as important as the ones with a million. We're still going to keep track on them. And so we've added those at the request of the regional offices. One of the questions we always get asked about is if the state has any funding for cleanup, and we don't have any appropriated funding. Our reason for keeping them on here is, again, keeping track of them. We ask our regional folks again on an annual basis, but for some sites even more regularly to do drive-bys, making sure those piles haven't gotten any larger. There hasn't been any activity. If there is activity, that we know about it. Those kind of things. But for the most part, we do want to keep this out of the foresight for us, because we want to make sure that, again, sites don't grow, and that we do keep a good track of the number of sites and the size of them. And there's anecdotally, we get calls probably once a month from folks who have had family that's passed away, that now they've got a piece of property they got to go out to, and either when they walk it or they get an appraiser, they buy tires on there. So we get those kind of calls, but we also get calls from interested business folks that are purchasing property with tires, and they want to know plans about how to remove them. And so we work with them, kind of stay out of their way, because we want for them to proceed. But we do, make sure that they're using a authorized transport to get the tires out, making sure there is an authorized end use. So we do keep track on that. But again, it's something that we keep looking at, keep working with our regional folks, keep working with our litigation folks when they ask us to, keep working with enforcement just to make sure that all bases are covered. And definitely something that we still pay very close attention to. So with that, any questions for Melissa?
I just have one other question. You may not be able to answer this. I know some states have gone. I thought Arizona had a pretty active using tires in their road aggregate. And then I thought I had heard Texas was a little hesitant to it. I mean, is that accurate, or are they doing more, or do we know?
We don't know exclusive whether there is a program or project for that, but we do get information from some of the processors that part of their stock is going for asphalt use. One of the new things that we just found, and we found this by just by getting some reports to us, is, for example, DART, the transit system in Dallas, is now using scrap tires for pads to quiet down the noise that the trains make as they're passing through residential areas. So they're laying those down under the tracks. So there's always new things that are coming up. Melissa and Marissa Gibbs, who's our work lead, as well as we have other 4 staff that partially dedicated to this. We're always looking for different new ideas and definitely new uses for scrap tires. So yeah, we'll keep a really close eye on it. Thank you.
Question, going back to the generator reporting that y'all are getting going. Is there something we can do on like our city side with our code enforcement where we have some information we can get to some of these generators to help them know they've got to do their reporting?
Yes. So first I'll say, if any code enforcement officers visit scrap tire shops and they find that they're not there anymore, you can let us know. We can then take those off of the list if they're going to be going out and visiting them. We have a listserv which is basically an email class that you can join. So we'd recommend having your code enforcement officers sign up for that so that they receive information on when we're going to do trainings and different things to support the generators and having to comply with this new requirement. Yeah, I think that would be the most helpful, is have them sign up for our listserv and just let them know that there's more information and trainings coming.
Yeah. There's also 2 flyers online.
Oh, right. That's right. We do have flyers online on the website with information.
Great. Yeah, we get a lot of, somebody goes to Harbor Freight and buys a tire machine and opens up a shop, and then suddenly we chasing down tires and having to get onto them. So yeah, we really want to help cut the problem at the source. So.
Next up, we had a general operating permit loan banking on the air. Good morning, everyone.
Morning. My name is Dave Munzenmeyer. I'm a technical specialist in the air permits division, and I'm the rule project manager for this renewal rule project. I want to take a second. I grew up professionally in nuclear power. And when I was working in the nuclear power industry, we had a Navy admiral who was our vice president of nuclear operations down at the South Texas project. And he absolutely forbade the use of acronyms in meetings. And it did a lot for clarity, but it also made the meetings go long because there's a lot of acronyms in nuclear power. So that kind of leads me into, I've got a couple of caveats. We're going to talk about the Municipal Solid Waste Landfill General Operating Permit 517. So we're shifting from waste to air. And so acronyms and terms don't always line up. In air, we talk about sources, major sources, minor sources, emission units. We also talk about sites and facilities. And those terms don't necessarily agree with what's in the waste field as far as what we're talking about. So when you're dealing with a general operating permit or any air permitting authorization mechanism, you have to be very careful that you understand the terminology. And if a term looks familiar, check, because it may not be what you're used to if your entire professional focus is on the landfill and the landfill operations. The other caveat I have this morning is that all of the documents in this permitting process for this renewal are undergoing management review right now. So I don't have anything specific to share with you. I can't give you copies of things to look at. I can't talk about specific bits and pieces of the permit documents themselves. I'll go into a timeline a little bit later. It's all going to come out on August 16th. That'll be the first opportunity you'll have to take a look at the things. So really what we're going to talk about today is the process, how this works in the air world, how we create a new or renew an operating permit, and how it may apply to your facilities. So, oh, I got to click. I'm guessing. I guess right. Okay, so let's just a quick review. The federal operating permit program is a blanket program that applies to air sources or potential air sources in the state of Texas, and we reference this federal operating program period through a Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 122. That's where these rules sit. Basically, minor sources, which are sources below an emission threshold or below a size limitation, that are subject to certain rules. And I'm going to throw some letters out there. You may have heard them, you may not have heard them. Federal Rule 40 CFR 16, Part WWW, Part XXX, Part AAA. You know, there's a whole list of them. And you get to the end one, which is why, and everybody says, I don't know why. Yeah, that's an air joke. Sorry. 30 Chapter 132. Okay, now I'm not going to go. So minor sources, meaning you're below emissions thresholds, can still be required to get a federal operating permit if you must comply with another rule in the rule scheme. Major sources, which combined emissions from the site trigger the thresholds by which sources are classified as major, meaning that everything inside a boundary, a site, adds up to a number. And you cross that number, you're a major source. You must then get a federal operating permit, some kind of permit. And here's where it gets tricky. Different thresholds apply potentially where your source exists based on what's called the attainment status, which is another air term. And I will tell you, one of the changes or updates in this renewal, for example, is Bexar County. Bexar County's attainment status changed, triggering new rules or new terms being put in this operating permit. So if you have a facility, if you have a landfill, is it prejudicial to say landfill? Is that a bad word? I mean, okay. I mean,
Better than dumb.
I was gonna say, I used to go shooting with my grandpa at the dump by the slough up in northern Minnesota, and so that. But your landfill is in Bexar County. That may be something that you want to look at when this new permitting the renewal documents come out. So within the federal operating permit program, we have what are called general operating permits. They identify uniform permit conditions that apply to a category, to a group of things that are the same. We have GOPs for oil and gas. We have GOPs for other things. And the GOP here is for landfills. The idea being that we can write one big permit, and if you meet all the requirements within this big permit, you can be authorized to operate, and then you don't have to get a permit that's line by line specific for your facility, for your landfill. So here's terminology: sources, sites, and I'll say landfills that meet the applicability criteria can apply for an authorization to operate under the GOP. So there's a permit, it's a thing, it applies to everybody that can use it. And if you meet all the requirements, you'll get an authorization to operate under this permit. Basically a letter that says you can operate under this permit. Landfills that are authorized by a permit by rule, these are new source review permit types, a permit by rule or a standard permit can be authorized to operate under the GOP. If you have a case-by-case permit, or if you're under some kind of compliance plan or some other conditions, then you cannot be authorized under the GOP. So permits by rule, standard permits, you can be authorized. Case-by-case permits cannot be authorized under the GOP. There are big advantages to being able to use the GOP. It's a very streamlined process getting you to be authorized to operate the system. And authorization to operate are not subject to individual public notice. So if you're getting an authorization to operate under the GOP, you don't have to go through the public notice and review process, which again makes things go quicker. So the GOP, the big document, the generic document that applies, must be renewed every 5 years. We got to have a new look at it every 5 years to make sure that nothing has changed, nothing needs to be updated, things haven't been added or even taken out of the rules. We review and update the terms and tables. So within the document package, there's a document called the terms. That's basically the terms of the permit. It's a permit condition. There's a document called the tables. It's a giant Excel spreadsheet. It has very specific the items, what they point to, where they point to in the rules. We, TCEQ, fulfill the notice and hearing requirements for the GOP. So again, the general operating permit has to be renewed every 5 years. We, TCEQ, will hold a public hearing and allow the public the opportunity to review the permit, the changes, make comments, and give their input. The public includes everybody in this room. That's not TCEQ. After we get the public comments, then we have an opportunity to respond, and we develop a document in Air World that's called an RTC, a response to comments. As soon as we finalize the response to comments, we send it to EPA, and EPA gets their 45-day bite at the apple. So EPA gets to look at the permit, the conditions, all the changes that are made, and they get to look at the comments, and they get to look at how we address those comments and our response to the comments. So it's kind of an elongated process, and I'll show you the timeline in a minute. And then there's a 60-day public petition period after issuance where the public can get back involved. Now, if you have an authority to operate under the existing GOP, when the renewal happens and the new one becomes effective, if there are any changes in the renewal that impact your facility or your site or your landfill, then you have to renew your authority to operate. So if the GOP is renewed and within the GOP renewal, there is a change, that will specifically affect your landfill, then you will have to renew your authority to operate, and you'll have 90 days to do that. Talk about that a little bit more. The other piece to that is your authority to operate has a 5-year renewal period as well. So this is where the timing can all get goofy. The GOP can be renewed every 5 years, but if on year 2 of that renewal cycle, you got your authority to operate, well, then you've got 5 years out beyond that, so there's an extra cycle in there. So I'm saying this because when you hear 5 years, there's 5 years for us, TCEQ, to renew the permit itself, the GOP, but there's also 5 years for a landfill as a facility or as a landfill that's authorized to operate to renew theirs. So there's a couple of different things going on. I'm going to stop right now. Does anybody have any questions about that? I've lost you because that's kind of a timing deal. Okay, good. So here is the timeline. So we initiated this rural project back in July of 2023. We have a long horizon on these projects because, again, I'm not going to estimate the number of pages of things that have to be gone through and changed and updated. We are going to publish the proposal and all the associated draft documents and a notice of public hearing on August 16th. So that will be the first time that you'll get to review the final draft documents that are out for comment. And if you write anything down, the first thing you should look at is a document called the Statement of Basis, or SOB. The Statement of Basis will go through all of the changes and updates that are being made, bullet point by bullet point. And that's where you'll be able to take a look and see, these are the changes. It's everything from, we removed this bad comma here, to we added Bexar County ozone non-attainment area. So it is the complete picture. Once we release the documents, the 30-day public comment period starts, and it ends on September 16th when we will hold the public hearing. That public hearing will be held here at the campus, and it will be open for the public, members of the public, to come in and provide comments either online. It'll be a hybrid meeting, or in person. There'll be a 30-minute question and answer session before that will be sort of an informal Q&A where we can talk about what we're doing and what's going on. Once the public hearing starts, all we're doing is taking comments. I'm not sure how public hearings work in waste, but in the air section, when we hold these comment meetings, it's just to hear what people have to say. It's not to get into dialogue. It's not to have a sort of a Q&A and a back and forth. But we will be available approximately 30 minutes before. And it's going to be, I think, don't beat me up for this, but I think that's a Monday, and it's in the afternoon. It's going to start at 2 o'clock with 30 minutes beforehand. So about 1:30, we'll be here for Q&A, 2 o'clock. The actual details will be in the August 16th announcement. Then the EPA, once we get all the comments, we collect them, depending on how long it takes for us to put them together. Then the EPA will get their 45-day bite at the apple, and they'll be able to take a look and respond to us. And then there may be some more back office paperwork and so on, then the announcement. And the renewal effective date is going to be in late February. The last permit renewal was February 25th. That's a good target date, but things change, things slip one way or the other. But so late February. And then if you must revise or update your ATO, then you'll have 90 days from the date of that renewal effective date. So how do you get involved? Well, again, everything's going to be published on August 16th, or all the documents are going to be published for review on August 16th. You can look at the changes, you can look at the updates, start with a statement of basis. If you really want to dig into it, you can go deeper. August 16th through September 16th is the comment period. There'll be a portal. There'll be an announced way that you can do that as part of the hearing announcement. It's through the Office of Legal Services they have a mail process, a fax and email portal. And then once we get through that process, EPA will be notified on the 16th. So EPA will know that we're going through this process, and they'll be expecting their chance to review it. Once we get our response to comments documents complete, we send it to EPA. Probably, I think on the next slide, I have a date of around October 4th, or maybe it was on the last slide. They have 45 days to review comments and get their responses in. And then We will action whatever happens, and then we'll move it all forward. That's kind of a quick cruise through the process. And does anybody have any questions about the process right now?
I don't have a question about the process. I guess this goes to the solid waste side, and since I'm a finance person, I heard if there's a change on an air permit that's tied to a landfill, but a landfill has a 100-year life, so someone has a permit for a 100-year life. Did I just hear that has to be amended or what have you within that 5-year period?
The air permit?
No, if something changes in your air permit, landfills have air permits.
Yeah.
So if something changes in your air permit, I thought I heard something about on the solid waste side that has to be updated in 5 years.
It's updated through the air permit. Individual authorization has to be updated.
Yeah, that's just the air permit. The air permit.
The MSW just refers to it, says, I have this air permit.
Yeah, and
That seemed like that would be a big.
let me jump in real quick though and say, because again, we get into this terminology thing. It's not the air permit that you have to renew as a landfill. It's the authorization to operate, the ATO. So yeah, it's a wonky process, but again, the advantage to y'all is, you can go through the ATO and you don't have to go through public notice, and there's some streamlining there that goes on. I don't have it in the slide, and maybe we can get it in the minutes and I can show it. There's a couple of web pages. We have what's called a Title V announcement page. If you go to tcq.gov or whatever the name of the public website is, under air, there's Title V announcements. That's where this will show up with all the documents. There's also a what's new where it'll show up, and it'll also go out through Gov Delivery and be published in newspapers. There'll be a lot of opportunities to see when this is published, there'll be a lot of opportunities to see it and to see how you get into the documents. So, and my contact information. Is there any other questions?
I've got a quick one. There's been a lot of talk, especially in Harris County, about cumulative effects. Are we touching that at all, or are we staying away from that? With this authorization?
This author is.
Or this permit, sorry.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not sure I know the answer to that question. I don't believe so, because that's a different process, and then this is a specific operating permit function, and so maybe it will get molded into the data. Oh, Stephanie, my team leader is here. Maybe she can help with that.
Okay. So when you're talking about cumulative effects, that's going to be more on the NSR side, the new source review, or the state permits. This, the GOPs or the Title V permits, this is more the federal applicability. So we don't get into modeling impacts reviews and the Title V side of permitting. All of that's going to be done on individual state side permitting.
Thanks. Help me out. Any other questions?
I know you don't know the answer, but I'll just throw out here. So do you expect a lot of comments, a lot of pushback? The change is substantial enough that it'll get people's attention, or maybe not?
Do you own a landfill in Bexar County? Maybe. I mean, I honestly don't know. We do this every 5 years, and you go back and you look at what happened 5 years ago, and there was, 2 or 3 people said something about it. I mean, it's pretty wonky stuff. I also was rule project manager for some stuff having to do with concrete batch plants, and that generates hundreds of comments. So if I were betting, I would bet that the comments will come from the professional organizations and from, professional interests, landfill operators, people. I don't know, though. I mean, you're right. I can't answer the question definitively, but I don't, based on what happened last time, 5 years ago, I'm not anticipating pages and pages. Oh, my boss is going to speak again.
I'm just going to add onto that, in that really the GOPs, this project right here is more just to bring in the federal regulations. So anything that has been updated through EPA is going to be added into these GOPs. So it's not that the state or, TCEQ is changing any of the requirements. It's more just kind of folding everything in to the GOP. So I don't suspect we're going to get a whole lot just because they're already applicable, whether it's in the GOP or not, because of the federal requirements.
Just so I understand, your focus on Bear County is resulting from the fact that Bear County their attainment status has been changed in 5 years.
Thank you for correcting how I say the name. I'm sure that is going to irritate a lot of people.
It's a Texas thing. But I wasn't setting you up for that. Honestly, the reason that you're focusing on that, if I hear you correctly, is because Bear County in particular, their non-attainment status has been changed in the last 5 years.
Yes, that is correct. And I live in Pearland, so I just survived the hurricane, so that's my excuse.
Brain damage.
And to answer the question earlier, wind in South Texas, Pearland is south of Texas, and we have tons of wind debris, tree brush and shingles, but not a lot of water. That was my experience. All right, yeah, sorry if you live in Bear County if I missed that up. I've been staring at this thing for... No, I appreciate it though. I've been staring at this thing since July of 2023, and to be honest with you, I was always wondering if there were 2 counties we were talking. Any more questions?
Don't ever go to Mercurio. Yeah.
Waxahachie or Mahia. I grew up in Waco, so I know some of them. All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not taking that with me.
At one point, none of us knew that it was there.
So I guess our next speaker is preoccupied. So we'll maybe push that one to hopefully the break.
We're thinking April of next year, the April meeting. So then we're prepared for the hurricane season. I mean, of course, if there's any major freezes between now and then or other disasters.
Don't say that. Yeah.
We're all traumatized in one way or another.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk a little bit about it. Just again, general, I think most of y'all are aware, but Michelle was going to talk about the temporary debris management. So there's one part of temporary debris management is the planning aspect of it, of cities, counties are typically the ones that get asked the questions of where's all this brush debris going to go. So that's definitely something. Plan ahead when we're in April, when we're in the spring. We encourage the cities and the counties and everybody in any planning functions, start picking your temporary debris management sites in the planning function. TCEQ can't give pre-approval of sites, but we can work with the OCE, the regional offices can work with facilities and say, yeah, that looks like it should be a good site. You still have to submit the form when an event happens, but then if you're doing the planning ahead, you don't have to scramble and try to find, because there is that checklist on the debris management site of it has to meet these requirements. So one thing TCEQ encourages the planning function of it, of just looking ahead of where these sites are going to go when you do have an emergency event happens. And we do have cities and counties that do that. They know where these sites are going to go, and then they submit their paperwork as soon as power comes back on and we approve them. So that was one function.
You also get them pre-approved by FEMA ahead of time, which will allow you to recover more cost if you had not gotten it.
Yeah. That's definitely something Michelle's going to mention too, is get the temporary debris management sites approved, to get the paperwork in, because then you can start working with FEMA on reimbursement. If you start piling stuff there, get TCEQ approval a couple weeks later, we've had situations where FEMA doesn't reimburse that couple weeks until it's approved. So that, and then it's definitely like, look at the form if you're looking at temporary debris management sites. Like I said, there's a checklist on there of here's the things the regional office looks at. So go through that form, and then the forms are submitted to the regional office. We do the emergency TAs, temporary authorizations. We just do not, we cannot approve. It's always been OCE that does the temporary debris management sites. I believe they go out there to do a quick drive-by of the facility before they approve it. Don't hold me to that. I think that's what they do. So to look at that checklist. They're using that checklist to make a decision. So that's the less than 2-minute explanation of temporary debris management sites. We'll definitely have Michelle come and give a much better explanation, hopefully in October if nothing's going on.
And once you get those approved, we will have an inspection for the regional office.
Else you want to add?
There's also regulatory guidance available online, RG 518. And that covers both. There's a very small section for individuals and businesses, and then most of it's addressed to cities, counties, and I think they call it MSW handlers or something along those lines. So
is that guidance on temporary debris management sites or on management plans?
It's on disaster debris management.
So it doesn't focus on one group, it's more of a general document.
But that's where temporary debris management sites are mentioned, and there's a link to the form.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Charlie. Okay, then as far as the next steps, just some administrative items and comments. Hopefully, a couple of you had a chance to review the April 11th meeting highlights. I had a chance to read through them. They looked good to me. I didn't see anything. But if I could get a motion for approving them.
Move to approve the minutes. That's nice.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes. I don't have any action items out of this meeting unless I missed something, and no other Q&A other than we get Robin some information to help get her up to speed. Again, welcome. Any public comments?
The public comments online. If you're on the phone, press *5 to raise your hand. Comments? Oh, wait, somebody just said. That might just be.
You do or don't?
Looks like we do. Press *6 to unmute yourself.
This is Steve Shannon. What do I need to do?
We can hear you.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry. I thought that you wanted to verify that I was still on the call.
No.
No, I think you can go back to fishing, Steve.
Thank you.
You never stop fishing.
Okay.
Wanted to hear.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if that's the case, there's nothing else, and the meeting will adjourn, and we'll see you in October. So thank you.